Welcome to Management Minutes, where we discuss how to lead on purpose at the office, in your home, and in the world. I'm your host, Charles Evans. Over the past 4 weeks, we have built a foundation for leadership, one value at a time. We've talked about responsibility, which is taking ownership of the outcome, courage, which is casting a vision and asking people to build it with you, discipline, which is constructing a system that will turn the vision into reality, and humility, which is adapting to the plan when it needs to change without letting ego get in the way. Today, we close the series with the value that holds all four together, which is patience. Because you can have the best outcome, you can cast the boldest vision, you can build the most disciplined systems, and remain humble enough to adapt, and still lose everything if you don't have the patience to stay the course long enough for the work to compound. Now, patience in the context of the leadership code is understanding that progress is rarely a straight line and that the path between the vision and the reality bends, stalls, reverses, and all the tests the leaders resolve in ways that no plan can fully anticipate. Every leader has stood at the beginning of something and imagined a straight line to the finish, whether that's the new initiative, the organizational restructuring, the culture shift, the turnaround. You see the vision, you build the plan, you set the timeline, and you expect the line to hold. But it never does. And the leaders who survive the journey are not the ones with the best plan. They are the ones with the patience to endure the distance between the plan and the outcome. Patience matters because everything of value takes longer than you think it will. The team you're building, it's not going to gel in the first quarter. The culture you're reshaping, it won't shift in the first year. The strategy you designed won't produce visible results in the first 90 days. And in the space between the effort and the evidence, patience is the only thing that keeps you from not abandoning something that was working, even if it's a lot more slowly than you thought it would. Now, I'm going to compare the concept of organizational patience with the concept of grit, which was developed by Dr. Angela Duckworth and covered in her book, Grit, The Power of Passion and Perseverance. Duckworth spent years studying what separates people who achieve lasting impact from those who show early promise and then flame out. Her research included people from all walks of life, such as West Point candidates, National Spelling Bee finalists, teachers, and sales professionals. And her findings were a bit counterintuitive. The strongest predictor of success was not talent. It was not intelligence. It was not resources or opportunity. It was grit, which Duckworth defines as passion and sustained perseverance towards very long-term goals. Now, grit is more than just working hard, because plenty of people work hard for short periods. Grit is about working hard on the same thing for a long period, maintaining effort and interest over years, not just weeks or quarters. Duckworth's research showed that grit predicted success more reliably than IQ, standardized test scores, or even physical fitness. Because at West Point, the candidates who survived the brutal initial training period were not the strongest or the smartest. They were the ones who had the capacity to keep going when every signal in their environment was telling them to quit. Now, there are two components to Duckworth's model. The first is consistency of interest, which means staying committed to the same overarching goal rather than jumping from one pursuit to the next. The second is perseverance of effort, which is continuing to work toward that goal in the face of setbacks, plateaus, and the absence of visible progress. Now, both components are necessary because passion without perseverance is a hobby, and perseverance without passion is a grind. Grit is the intersection where the leader's long-term commitment to the mission meets the daily discipline of sustained effort. Duckworth also found that grit is not a fixed trait that you're born with. It's a muscle that develops the more you use it. So the good news is every season you endure that doesn't produce the result you expected, or every slow quarter where you survive, is just building your capacity for the next one. Remember, patience is not something that you wait for. It's something that you build over time. And one way patience manifests itself is the leader's ability to remain active and intentional while waiting for results. Because patience is not passivity. It's not just sitting back and hoping that the plan works. It is the disciplined practice of continuing to execute, continuing to measure, continuing to adjust while accepting that the timeline is not entirely within your control. And this is where patience connects to every other value in the leadership code. Because responsibility means that you continue to own the outcome even when the outcome is delayed. Courage means you continue to hold the vision even when the team is fatigued and the evidence hasn't arrived. Discipline means you continue to execute the lead measures even when the lag measures haven't moved. Humility means you remain open to adapting the approach even while holding firm on the destination. But patience without action is just waiting, and patience with it is endurance. And endurance is what separates the leaders who build something lasting from the leaders who built something fast and then watched it fade. The patient leader is not idle, and their activity is measured, it's intentional, and it's connected to the long term rather than reactive to the short term. Another manifestation of patience is the leader's responsibility to model it for the people they lead. Because patience is contagious, and so is impatience. When a leader becomes visibly frustrated with the pace of progress, the team absorbs that energy, and they begin to cut corners to accelerate results. And then they begin to sacrifice quality for speed, and they begin to prioritize the short-term wins that look good on the scoreboard but don't advance the long-term mission. And the organization shifts from building something durable to chasing something immediate, because the leader's impatience has now set the tempo, and has set the tempo in a counterproductive direction. But when the leader models patience, when they walk into the room during a slow quarter and they can say something like, "Listen, we're on track. The work is compounding. We're going to stay the course." That allows the team to exhale. They refocus on the lead measures, they recommit to the progress, to the process, and they trust that the leader has a long-term vision and the endurance to see it through. Now, Duckworth described this as the difference between a sprinter's mindset and a marathon runner's mindset. Remember, the sprinter is looking for the finish line in every step. The marathon runner knows that the finish line is miles away and paces their effort, their energy, and their expectations accordingly. The patient leader sets the pace for the entire organization, and the pace they set determines whether the team builds with endurance or burns out chasing a timeline that was never realistic to begin with. Now, of course, there are going to be times when you do have to apply pressure to the team in order to meet a deadline or to execute on an important assignment. In those situations, it's not so much that you are being impatient, it's more of you strategically applying pressure and creating a focus on a short-term outcome. And these situations should be few and far between. Otherwise, you need to reconsider your planning process or you're going to burn your people out. So now let's bring this all together, and not just for this episode, but for the entire series. The leadership code is 5 values in sequence, with each building on the last. Responsibility is the foundation, and that's the willingness to take ownership of the outcome. Without it, nothing else is possible. Extreme ownership taught us that leaders must own everything in their world. There is no one else to blame. Courage is the vision, and that's the willingness to cast a picture of the future and then ask the people around you to help you build it. Transformational leadership taught us that the highest form of leadership is raising both the leader and the staff to higher levels of purpose. Discipline is the structure, and that's the ability to adhere to the plan and build systems that make execution predictable. The 4 disciplines of execution taught us to focus on the wildly important goal, act on lead measures, keep a compelling scoreboard, and create a cadence of accountability. Humility is our adaptability, and that's the ability to change course when the conditions demand it without letting ego stand in the way. Level 5 leadership taught us that the greatest leaders combine personal humility with a fierce professional will and build organizations that outlast them. And finally, we have patience, and that's our sense of endurance, the perseverance to stay in the plan long enough for the work to compound. Remember, grit taught us that sustained effort over time is a stronger predictor of success than talent, intelligence, or resources. Now remember, these 5 values are not separate ideas. They are a connected system that works together. If you take one away, the others will weaken. You practice all 5, and you become the kind of leader that people will follow not only because they have to, but because they want to. And that is the leadership code. It's been an honor to build this with you over these last 5 weeks, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I have. That's all we have for today. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please like, subscribe, and share it on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. And remember, leadership is a choice. And as always, lead on purpose. I'm Charles Evans, and this has been Management Minutes.